Mesdames et messieurs les combattants du débarquement, Monsieur le Président des États-Unis d'Amérique, Mesdames, Messieurs, dans ce haut lieu de la mémoire des hommes, sur cette terre sacrée de notre histoire, brûle à jamais la flamme du souvenir. Contre la nuit de l'oubli, nous voici rassemblés pour rendre hommage aux soldats de la liberté, aux héros légendaires de l'opération Overlord. Contre le temps qui fuit, nous voici ensemble pour rappeler aux générations nouvelles le sens d'un combat qui éclaire toujours nos consciences. La France n'oubliera jamais. Elle n'oubliera jamais ce 6 juin 1944 qui vit renaître l'espoir. Elle n'oubliera jamais ces hommes qui consentirent au sacrifice suprême pour libérer notre sol, notre patrie, notre continent du joug de la barbarie nazie et de sa folie meurtrière. Elle n'oubliera jamais ce qu'elle doit à l'Amérique, son ami de toujours, ce qu'elle doit à tous ses alliés, grâce auxquels l'Europe, enfin réunifiée, vit dans la paix, la liberté et la démocratie. Il y a 60 ans, sur ces plages de Normandie, ici même, à Omaha Beach, Omaha la sanglante, s'est joué le destin de la France, de l'Europe et du monde. Aujourd'hui, devant ces croix alignées, où reposent pour l'éternité vos compagnons, vos frères d'armes, tombés au champ d'honneur dans le silence du recueillement, la même émotion nous étreint. Le cœur se serre devant tant de courage, tant d'abnégation, tant de générosité. L'esprit s'élève devant l'absolu de cette jeunesse, offrant au monde le souffle de sa vie. Au nom de chaque Française et de chaque Français, je veux dire la reconnaissance éternelle de notre nation, la dette sans égale de nos démocraties. Je veux saluer cette audace, cet élan de l'âme humaine qui, refusant la fatalité de l'asservissement, est venu bousculer l'histoire pour grandir les hommes, les nations et les peuples. Je salue la mémoire et le sacrifice de tous ces combattants, surmontant la peur, toutes les peurs. Ils ont porté au plus haut la conscience humaine par la justesse de leur combat et par la force de leur idéal. Monsieur le Président des États-Unis d'Amérique, cette journée du souvenir débute ici, à Colville-sur-Mer, dans ce cimetière où l'Amérique honore pour toujours ses fils, devenus aussi les nôtres, ces enfants si jeunes, tombés pour la liberté. À toute la nation américaine qui partage avec nous ces instants de recueillement, à ces femmes et à ces hommes qui ont payé le lourd tribut de ces journées héroïques, je veux exprimer le message de la France, celui de l'amitié et de la fraternité, celui de la reconnaissance et de la gratitude. Depuis plus de 200 ans, l'Amérique et la France ont en commun ces valeurs humanistes qui fondent leur destin. Nos deux nations ont toujours eu la même passion de la liberté et du droit, de la justice et de la démocratie. Ces valeurs sont inscrites au plus profond de nos cultures, de notre civilisation. Elles font le génie de nos peuples, elles sont le cœur, l'âme de nos nations. Des plaines de Yorktown aux plages de Normandie, dans la souffrance de ces conflits mondiaux qui ont déchiré le siècle écoulé, nos deux pays, nos deux peuples ont défendu côte à côte, dans la fraternité du sang versé, une certaine idée de l'homme, une certaine idée du monde. Cette idée qui est au cœur de la Charte des Nations Unies. La France, qui a connu la longue épreuve de la guerre et de l'occupation. La France, c'est tout ce qu'elle doit aux États-Unis d'Amérique, à l'engagement du président Roosevelt, à l'action du général Eisenhower. Chacun, chaque famille de France garde le précieux souvenir de ces heures de liesse qui ont suivi le débarquement. Chacun se souvient aussi des terribles souffrances endurées dans la bataille, celles des soldats d'abord, celles des populations civiles aussi. Aujourd'hui, comme hier, cette amitié faite de confiance, d'exigence et de respect mutuel reste intacte. L'Amérique est notre allié de toujours. Une alliance, une solidarité d'autant plus forte qu'elles se sont forgées durant ces heures terribles. Et quand l'Amérique connaît l'épreuve, quand la barbarie vient tragiquement endeuiller l'Amérique et le monde, comme ce 11 septembre 2001, si présent dans nos mémoires et dans nos cœurs, la France est aux côtés de chaque Américaine et de chaque Américain. Leur deuil est aussi le nôtre. En conférant à 100 vétérans américains ici présents, et que je salue, la croix de chevalier de la Légion d'honneur, j'ai souhaité, au nom de toutes les Françaises et de tous les Français, témoigner une nouvelle fois, ce matin, de cette amitié ancienne et de notre reconnaissance. Mesdames et messieurs, ce moment de mémoire porte également une parole de paix. Le glorieux combat de ces hommes auxquels nous rendons hommage est une exigence pour l'avenir et un devoir pour le présent. Il y a 60 ans, les soldats de la liberté ont porté les armes pour faire triompher des valeurs auxquelles aspire l'humanité tout entière. Une vision de l'homme, de sa dignité, de la paix, de la liberté, de la démocratie. Mais ce combat de l'homme sur lui-même reste un combat de chaque instant. Face aux dangers du temps et du monde, ce monde où la violence et la haine enflamment trop souvent les hommes et les peuples, le message des héros de ce jour le plus long, le flambeau que nos pères ont porté si haut et qu'ils nous ont transmis, sont notre héritage commun. Ils nous font un devoir de mémoire pour se souvenir de ce passé si proche où le fanatisme, le refus de la différence et le rejet de l'autre ont jeté des enfants, des femmes et des hommes dans la nuit et le brouillard des camps de la mort. N'oublions jamais qu'il n'est pas d'avenir sans repère, sans fidélité aux leçons de l'histoire. Devoir de vigilance pour combattre sans merci toutes ces résurgences, tous ces ferments de haine qui se nourrissent de l'ignorance, de l'obscurantisme et de l'intolérance. Devoir de fidélité à nos valeurs pour que notre génération bâtisse et lègue à nos enfants ce monde de progrès et de liberté auquel ils ont droit, pour construire cette société du respect et du dialogue, de la tolérance et de la solidarité, qui fut l'essence même du combat que nous commémorons, pour que souffle toujours le vent de l'espérance.
President, Mrs. Chirac, Secretary Powell and Secretary Fonseca, General Myers, members of the United States Congress, fellow Americans, ladies and gentlemen, it is a high honor to represent the American people here at Normandy on the 6th of June, 2004. 20 summers ago, another American president came here to Normandy to pay tribute to the men of D-Day. He was a courageous man himself and a gallant leader in the cause of freedom. And today we honor the memory of Ronald Reagan. Mr. President, thank you for your gracious welcome to the reunion of allies. History reminds us that France was America's first friend in the world. With us today are Americans who first saw this place at a distance in the half-light of a Tuesday morning long ago. Time and providence have brought them back to see once more the beaches and the cliffs, the crosses and the Stars of David. Generations to come will know what happened here, but these men heard the guns. Visitors will always pay respects at this cemetery, but these veterans come looking for a name and remembering faces and voices from a lifetime ago. Today we honor all the veterans of Normandy and all their comrades who never left. On this day in 1944, President Franklin Roosevelt addressed the American people, not with a speech, but with a prayer. He prayed that God would bless America's sons and lead them straight and true. He continued, "They will need thy blessings. They will be sore tired by night and by day without rest until victory is won. The darkness will be rent by noise and flame. Men's souls will be shaken with the violences of war." As Americans prayed along, more than 12,000 Allied aircraft and about 5,000 naval vessels were carrying out General Eisenhower's order of the day. In this massive undertaking, there was a plan for everything except for failure. Eisenhower said that this operation is planned as a victory, and that's the way it is going to be. They had waited for one break in the weather, and then it came. Men were sent in by parachute and by glider. And on this side of the channel, through binoculars and gun sights, German soldiers could see coming their way the greatest armada anyone had ever seen. In the lead were hundreds of landing craft, carrying brave and frightened men. Only the ones who made that crossing can know what it was like. They tell of the pitching deck, the whistles of shells from the battleships behind them, the white jets of water from any enemy fire around them, and then the sound of bullets hitting the steel ramp that was about to fall. One GI later said, "As our boat touched sand and the ramp went down, I became a visitor to hell." Hitler's Atlantic Wall was composed of mines and tank obstacles, trenches and jutting cliffs. gun emplacements and pillboxes, barbed wire, machine gun nests, and artillery trained accurately on the beach. In the first wave of the landing here at Omaha, one unit suffered 91% casualties. General Omar Bradley later wrote, 6 hours after the landings, we held only 10 yards of beach. The British Commando Unit had half its men killed or wounded while taking the town of Saint-Aubin. A D-Day veteran remembers, the only thing that made me feel good was to look around and try to find somebody who looked more scared than I felt. That man was hard to find. At all the beaches and landing grounds of D-Day, men saw some images that they would spend a lifetime preferring to forget. One soldier carries a memory of 3 paratroopers dead and hanging from telephone poles like a horrible crucifixion scene. All who fought saw images of pain and death, raw and relentless. The men of D-Day also witnessed scenes they would proudly and faithfully recount. Scenes of daring and self-giving that went beyond anything the Army or the country could ask. They remember men like Technician 5th grade John Pender Jr., whose job was to deliver vital radio equipment to the beach. He was gravely wounded before he hit shore, and he kept going. He delivered the radio, and instead of taking cover, went back into the surf 3 more times to salvage equipment. Under constant enemy fire, this young man from Pennsylvania was shot twice again and died on the beach below us. The ranks of the Allied Expeditionary Force were filled with men who did a specific assigned task. From clearing mines to unloading boats to scaling cliffs, whatever the danger, whatever the cost. And the sum of this duty was an unstoppable force. By the end of June 6, 1944, more than 150,000 Allied soldiers had reached Fortress Europe. When the news of D-Day went out to the world understood the immensity of the moment. The New York Daily News pulled its lead stories to print the Lord's Prayer on its front page. In Ottawa, the Canadian Parliament rose to sing God Save the King and the Marseillaise. Broadcasting from London, King George told his people, this time the challenge is not to fight to survive, but to fight to win. Broadcasting from Paris, Nazi authorities told citizens that anyone cooperating with the Allies would be shot. And across France, the resistance defied those warnings. Near the village of Colville, a young woman on a bicycle raced to her parents' farmhouse. She was worried for their safety. Seeing the shattered windows and partially caved-in roof, Anne-Marie Bruck called for her parents. As they came out of the damaged house, her father shouted, "My daughter, this is a great day for France." As it turned out, it was a great day for Anne-Marie as well. The liberating force of D-Day included the young American soldier she would marry, an Army private who was fighting half a mile away on Omaha Beach. It was another fine moment in Franco-American relations. In Amsterdam, a 14-year-old girl heard the news of D-Day over the radio in her attic hiding place. She wrote in her diary, "It still seems too wonderful, too much like a fairy tale." The thought of friends and delivery fills us with confidence. Anne Frank even ventured to hope I may yet to be able to go back to school in September or October. That was not to be. The Nazis still had about 50 divisions and more than 800,000 soldiers in France alone. D-Day +1 and D-Day +2 and many months of fierce fighting lay ahead. From Arnhem, the Virgin Forest, to the Bulge. Across Europe, Americans shared the battle with Britons, Canadians, Poles, Free French, and brave citizens from other lands taken back one by one from Nazi rule. In the trials and total sacrifice of the war, we became inseparable allies. The nations that liberated and conquered Europe would stand together for the freedom of all of Europe. The nations that battled across the continent would become trusted partners in the cause of peace. And our great alliance of freedom is strong, and it is still needed today. The generation we honor on this anniversary, all the men and women who labored and bled to save this continent, took a more practical view of the military mission. Americans wanted to fight and win and go home. And our GIs had a saying, the only way home is through Berlin. That road to VE Day was hard and long and traveled by weary and valiant men. And history will always record where that road began. It began here, with the first footprints on the beaches of Normandy. 20 years after D-Day, former President Eisenhower returned to this place and walked through these rows. He spoke of his joy at being a grandfather. And then he said, when I look at all these graves, I think of the parents back in the States whose only son is buried here. Because of their sacrifice, they don't have the pleasure of grandchildren. Because of their sacrifice, my grandchildren are growing up in freedom. The Supreme Commander knew where the victory was won and where the greatest debt was owed. Always our thoughts and hearts return to the sons of America who came here and now rest here. We think of them as you, our veterans, last saw them. We think of men not far from boys who found the courage to charge toward death and who often, when death came, were heard to call Mom and Mother, help me. We think of men in the promised years of life, loved and mourned and missed to this day. Before the landing in Omaha, Sergeant Earl Parker of Bedford, Virginia, proudly passed around a picture of Danny, the newborn daughter he had never held. He told the fellas, if I could see this daughter of mine, I wouldn't mind dying. Sergeant Parker is remembered here at the Garden of the Missing. And he is remembered back home by a woman in her 60s who proudly shows a picture of her handsome, smiling young dad. All who are buried and named in this place are held in the loving memory of America. We pray in the peace of the cemetery that they have reached the far shore of God's mercy. And we still look with pride on the men of D-Day, on those who served and went on. It is a strange turn of history that called on young men from the prairie towns and city streets of America to cross an ocean and throw back the marching mechanized evils of fascism. And those young men did it. You did it. that a difficult summit was reached, then passed, and 60 years of living. Now has come a time of reflection, with thoughts of another horizon and the hope of reunion with the boys you knew. I want each of you to understand you will be honored ever and always by the country you served and by the nations you freed. When the invasion was finally over and the guns were silent, this coast, we are told, was lined for miles with the belongings of the thousands who fell. There were life belts and canteens and socks and K rations and helmets and diaries and snapshots. And there were Bibles, many Bibles, mixed with the wreckage of war. Our boys had carried in their pockets the book that brought into the world this message. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. America honors all the liberators who fought here in the noblest of causes, and America would do it again for our friends. May God bless you.